Hi, welcome to the first episode of Bonan The Contrarian, the show where we take a second look at your most loved and hated music, movies, and games and tells you you're wrong. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite bands growing up, a band you could say largely introduced me to punk rock, Bad Religion, and an album so bad they disowned it for decades, Into the Unknown. First, a little background on Bad Religion. They started Epitaph Records with the release of their first self-titled EP, Bad Religion, in 1981 while they were still in high school. Epitaph Records, the record label that they created, along with Fat Wreck Chords, came to largely define the 90s skate punk sound, the Epiphat sound. Maybe the best way to get an idea of what that sound is to listen to some classic Bad Religion. Here's the title track of their 1989 album, No Control.
We have no control. We do not understand. You have no control. You are not in command. You have no control. We have no control. No control. No control. You have no control.
There it is, their signature vocal harmonies, dubbed oozin ahhs in the liner notes, are present throughout the chorus. The song is angsty but still extremely melodic. It's like a barbershop quartet goes punk. The songs are short, hooky, and harmonious while still full of urgency, sometimes even anger. There's about a 50-50 chance that they have a pentatonic-style guitar lead somewhere in there, and a big helping of multisyllabic lyrics that will have you grasping for the thesaurus. Or, as Greg Graffin would put it,
Elect me, I ramble on the sesame, lyrics on the antonyms I hate.
these are the things that make up the DNA of what makes Bad Religion Bad Religion. Here's another example of that Bad Religion sound off one of their fan-favorite albums, another title track, this time for Against the Grain.
Against the grain, that's where I'll stay. Swim man upstream, I maintain against the grain.
Yeah, that's the stuff, like a bunch of angry choir boys. So now let's take a listen to a track off the album we're talking about today, Into the Unknown. Wow, so that was different. Fans hated this album. In fact, I blame the negative fan reaction to this album as the reason Bad Religion stayed close to their winning formula without straying too much in the future, which is a common criticism towards the band. I think they didn't want to risk another Into the Unknown. Some quick background on this album. Bassist Jay Bentley and drummer Pete Flintstone actually quit for the release of this album. And I read in an interview somewhere that I can't seem to find online that guitarist Brett Gurewitz claims he was taking so many drugs at this point in time that was the only reason he imagines he could have participated in the album. However, Greg Graffin, their singer, was apparently completely sober at this time, so Brett doesn't know what came over him. The band disowned this album for decades. It wasn't listed on any of their official websites, discographies. They didn't talk about it. Magazines didn't ask about it. You couldn't buy it anywhere. Most people didn't even seem to know it existed. As for the music itself, okay, the keyboard tone, it's cheesy. The big echoey drums sound dated, and in general it suffers from bad production. But did you notice the vocals? Specifically, the prominent use of vocal harmonies. I think while working on this album, they discovered how great vocal harmonies could be for boosting a catchy hook, because they used it nearly every time after this, but scarcely ever in any of their albums before. Here's an example. Take a listen to something off of their first full-length, How Could Hell Be Any Worse? I gotta admit, I was never really a big fan of Bad Religion in their early albums. It's not that they were awful. I mean, they could obviously construct a verse and a chorus, and they could play their instruments, but it's just ultimately generic to me. I know a lot of fans will disagree, and you can flame me in the comments, but yeah, I just didn't think there was a lot of potential or anything special about those first two Bad Religion releases. That's why Into the Unknown is the most important album for Bad Religion towards ultimately finding their signature sound. So yeah, it's not a great album, but it's more than just a piece of their recording history. It's the point when they became the band they were going to become. It's the portrait of an artist as a young band, and a key example of how sometimes a failed piece of art might have some redeeming aspects that one needs to keep exploring and not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's listen to the first track of the self-titled debut EP, Bad Religion, released in 1981. The song is also called Bad Religion. So let's listen to Bad Religion by Bad Religion off their album Bad Religion.
Bad religion, good justice, injustice, not too late. Bad religion, bad religion.
Now, let's listen to a re-recorded version of this same song for the 1985 Back to the Known. Yes, the band wanted to separate themselves so fully from their previous album that they named their follow-up EP Back to the Known.
Bad religion, regurgitate, indecision, it's not too late. Bad religion, bad religion.
Right off the bat, you hear those harmonies. In fact, harmonies are present all over this album. This is the first real Bad Religion release with oozin ahhs, being a direct carryover from Into the Unknown. My final proof that Into the Unknown wasn't an irredeemable album? Let's take a listen to that same song I had you listen to earlier, Against the Grain, but this time, let's listen to the demo version.
3,000 miles of wilderness overcome by the flow. A lonely restitution, a pavement pump and show. I seek 1,000 answers, I find but one or two. I'll maintain no discomfiture, my path again renewed. Against the grain, it's where I'll stay. Swimming upstream, I maintain against the grain.
Yeah, Greg Graffin produced a series of demo tapes just to map out the melodies and chord progressions of the songs he was going to record for that album. And you hear that same cheesy keyboard tone that you did on Into the Unknown, and sure, they don't sound great, but that's because they're only demos. They're not supposed to sound great. They're just supposed to get the idea across. But it's an interesting look into what an unfinished demo for Bad Religion sounds like. Let's listen to another demo made for that same album.
Lascivious, it's all that I can think of as I drag my feet, searching like Diogenes. Dangerous, the adjective of the decade and of your alluring intricacies.
I mean, yeah, it sounds awful, but when you know what the song that eventually becomes, you can hear why it works. So essentially, Into the Unknown is like a studio-length demo track for Bad Religion with bad keyboards and worse production, but ultimately strong vocal hooks. I'm serious. If you listen to Into the Unknown, you'll probably even find some chord progressions and melodies that they used later in some of your favorite tracks by the band. Feel free to post in the comments if you find any examples. So Into the Unknown is a failed album without which they would have never discovered their knack for vocal harmonies. So without Into the Unknown, do we ever really get Bad Religion? That's why Into the Unknown is Bad Religion's most important album. If not for the listener, then ultimately for the band themselves. Thanks for watching, and for the first time, I'm Bonan The Contrarian, and you're wrong.